If you watch this channel, you've probably noticed that if we don't talk about Tears of the Kingdom every day, it's every other day. Which is why it makes it so interesting to me what comes after Tears of the Kingdom, what will be the aftermath of this megaton of a game. And surely Nintendo has other projects in the works. But with the second half of 2023 so vacant, the only thing we know about is Pikmin 4 in July and some DLC, what is to come? What is going to be Nintendo's big game that they're pushing for this upcoming holiday of 2023? Well, that's what we're talking about today.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and if you're worried about Tears of the Kingdom talk on the channel, even after Tears of the Kingdom comes out, we'll be making theory videos and tips videos on this for probably years to come. But yes, there will be other things to talk about after Tears of the Kingdom as well, including whatever's coming for this upcoming holiday. But before we jump into that, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 25,000 subscribers by the time Tears of the Kingdom comes out on May 12th. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because then we might just have a chance of making it. So what do we know so far about 2023 after Tears of the Kingdom? In June, there's nothing known. In July, we have Pikmin 4, which I would say is a pretty solid release that's on the way. And then beyond that, we know about some DLC that's supposed to come. We'll be getting some Fire Emblem DLC, we'll be getting some DLC for Splatoon 3, the expansion. We're going to be getting the Wave 4 DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which will also function as its own smaller game, looks like another little big-ish adventure, kind of like Torn of the Golden Country, the final wave of DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which even had its own physical release. It was like a 20-ish hour RPG experience, something comparable to the length of a whole Pokemon game. So if you like Xenoblade and you're okay with the length of Pokemon games, then the DLC for Xenoblade 3 likely is going to be effectively almost its own little release. So that is substantial, I would say. And on the note of Pokemon, we are going to be getting at least Wave 1 of its DLC for the holiday, so that will also be something worthwhile for Pokemon fans. And then there's also the Mario Rabbids DLC. We are supposed to get the Rayman DLC, which might be pretty hype if you're a fan of Mario Rabbids. But at the end of the day, while some of this DLC may be pretty good, it is just DLC. So what else is there? Can Nintendo just get by with Pikmin 4 and DLC for the second half of the year? I feel that some people may try to argue this, along with a few remasters as have been rumored, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think there is going to be a solid release schedule throughout the entire year, as it has been for every year of Switch. And the reason I believe this is because currently the Switch is on pace to maybe become the most successful system of all time. Not just in terms of hardware, which indeed that is what I'm referring to, but also in terms of software. More people buy more games on Switch. So this idea that Nintendo should just slow down momentum randomly to prepare themselves for Switch 2, which we believe is on the horizon, I don't really agree with this. And we've already talked about in multiple videos already how there is this report coming from a few different journalists that the second half of 2023 and beyond would be slow after Tears of the Kingdom, but we've had perhaps one of the biggest journalists, Andy Robinson, kind of backtrack on that, saying that there will be some bigger games coming out later into the year. And that makes more sense to me. Do I think there could be some level of a gap between Tears of the Kingdom and the next big game? Yeah. The holiday, that's the gap. How about a half year's gap? May, we'll get Tears of the Kingdom, and then October, November, there will be another big release. And in between, we'll have other releases like Pikmin 4, like the Xenoblade DLC, like the Splatoon DLC, maybe a couple remasters. The Prime 2 and 3 remasters have been rumored. Maybe Paper Mario. F-Zero has been prominently rumored to be remastered. Actually, I've heard something recently that supports the rumors even more so. So I do think that there's a good chance F-Zero is around the corner, and maybe even this year. It might not happen this year, I don't know that for a fact. So between a few high quality remasters, some prominent DLC and Pikmin 4, they should be able to get to the holiday, but I do think there's going to be at least one big game. At least. And what will that be? And well, it comes down to what exactly Nintendo's plan is, obviously. But there's been a lot of talk about Switch 2, and we've heard rumors about it maybe coming out by the end of this year. and I do believe that is a possibility. But it is only a possibility. It could be next year, for example, as other places have reported. So let's consider this from a couple different angles. If Switch 2 is coming this year, what I think is the most obvious big holiday game is the next big Mario game, a 3D Mario game. Recently, during the Variety interview in the lead up to the release for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which is currently seeing amazing box office sales, it may become the most successful Illumination movie ever, which in terms of sales puts it in some of the most successful movies of all time. So the Mario movie is looking to have an incredible start, and perhaps the Nintendo Cinematic Universe as well. But to my point, during the interview, Miyamoto was asked about the next big Mario, and Miyamoto, in so many words, said, "Tune in to future Nintendo Directs." Now, I've gotten pushback on this, some people arguing that this isn't a tease, it's a nothing burger. I still disagree, even after hearing the counterpoints, because what you gotta consider is that this interview was meant for the mainstream. And as opposed to saying, Nintendo's always working on Mario, I can't say anything at this time, he instead pointed our attention to the Nintendo Direct, and when that may come. So what this is doing is that this interview is reaching a larger audience, people who are excited about the Mario movie, which is reaching a very big audience. As I brought up, the sales are incredible, so more people will be paying attention to the next Nintendo Directs, and basically Miyamoto was providing an alley-oop for a slam dunk announcement for whatever's to come next. And if they have a big Mario game, that'll be massively boosted by the Mario movie. If you doubt this kind of boost, consider that after Pokemon Go, Pokemon Sun and Moon came out, and it was one of the most successful launches ever. These boosts are relevant, they do matter. There's a reason why Nintendo has gone into mobile gaming and movies. It's not just because they can gain sales from that, but because it also boosts their IP. So a Mario movie announcement striking while the iron is hot makes sense. So announce this Mario game this summer, maybe in a big direct, and it could come out for the holiday. Now, the reason why I only think this is a possibility is because they may want to save Mario for the next big system. So if the next big system is coming out this holiday, then this is the best, most opportune time to do it. This holiday. Push the next big Mario, it will do tremendously well. But if the Switch 2 isn't ready, I don't think Nintendo is going to lose out on the opportunity to have either a major Zelda or a major Mario to push that system. So with Tears of the Kingdom coming out this May, and at this point, pretty obviously, there will not be a next-gen system available by that point, the next big thing is Mario. So I think they'll be saving Mario for when that system comes out. Now, people have argued, oh, what about a new Mario Kart? What about Metroid Prime 4? Historically speaking, it's been either 3D Mario or 3D Zelda that Nintendo typically uses to push new hardware. So them doing something else wouldn't be completely out of the question, but historically speaking, it has not been their most successful moves in the past. But on the note of Metroid Prime 4, recently we talked about how we heard that Metroid Prime 4 is complete. What does that mean? That's hard to say, but considering that Prime Remastered just came out, considering how long the development has been, I do think Prime 4 is likely around the corner. So, it could potentially come out soon, and I don't think it has to be a game to push the next system. While I think Metroid Prime 4 would make sense as like maybe a combo title alongside a new Mario game, I don't think it would be the launch title. A lot of people brought up Prime 4 as the launch title. I think it would be a great showcase for the system visually, but Metroid is not known to be the biggest seller, so it's not going to push sales as much as a Mario would. And a 3D Mario, by the way, would also be a massive visual showcase too, just for the record. So if Switch 2 is coming out this year, I could see Metroid Prime 4 potentially being slotted into this year, maybe like a December release, or if Switch 2 comes out in October, maybe a November release, like that's possible. But I would say Prime 4 may more likely come out in 2024. But if it is indeed truly done, and Switch 2 is not coming out this year, meaning probably no Mario this year, this might be the best chance to give Metroid Prime 4 the massive spotlight for a holiday. Because as we said earlier, the Metroid series is not known to be the biggest seller, but with the success of Dread being the best-selling Metroid game to date, and Prime Remaster causing all sorts of supply shortages, potentially also being an incredibly well-selling game in its own right, Metroid Prime 4 has a massive opportunity to come in and become an even greater seller than those games and push the Metroid fan base to a larger level. We've seen a few different Nintendo series on the Switch reach a whole other level, so giving Metroid Prime 4 potentially the last holiday where it's just Switch from Nintendo might be the right move. Now, there would still be other things for those who aren't interested in Metroid, like we have the Pokemon DLC, there's the Mario Kart DLC, which I haven't even brought up yet as well, so there will be other little things, and I'm sure there will be other side games on top of that, but Metroid Prime 4 would be like that high quality title that Nintendo would put out for us core fans to enjoy this Christmas if we're already done with Tears of the Kingdom. On the note of Tears of the Kingdom though, well, the point of this video is to talk about things beyond Tears of the Kingdom. I do think that there's a likelihood that there will be DLC at some point or another. Now, given the higher price tag and how long this game's been in development, I'm not expecting the DLC to necessarily happen immediately. My take has been that Nintendo will make sure that the DLC cycle for Tears of the Kingdom lines up for the Switch too, because since they missed the opportunity to push Tears of the Kingdom at launch with a new system, they'll use a big DLC expansion to Tears of the Kingdom to push the next system as well, alongside maybe some sort of graphics enhancement patch. But it's worthy of note that there could be some Tears of the Kingdom DLC that might come out for the holiday, and that might be some extra bit of good content for us to enjoy around then. But still, that wouldn't be the big holiday release. So going beyond everything mentioned so far, what else could we see that potentially could be the big holiday release? Well, if Nintendo's not ready to push Mario because Switch 2 is not ready yet, and Metroid Prime 4 potentially Nintendo wants to for sure be a launch window game, so they save it for a little bit for next year as well, maybe what they put out, finally, is that rumored Donkey Kong game that we've been talking about for a few years now. A couple weeks ago when we were talking about the canceled Donkey Kong Freedom Project, I think what was important about that news wasn't that there was a game that seemed cool that was canceled, but rather that the project transitioned over to Nintendo EPD, and the implication is that they wanted something big for Donkey Kong. And I don't know what exactly that will translate to in terms of gameplay, but I will tell you, I expect Nintendo to do something different than what's been done before. And considering the Mario movie, and considering how big of a role Donkey Kong had, and how there is an expansion coming to Nintendo World that is the Donkey Kong expansion, I'm pretty confident in saying that there is something Donkey Kong around the corner. And that might be in the second half of this year. If Mario's not coming out, if Metroid's not coming out, if everything else is simply featured through DLC, they're going to want something prominent, something new. And that could be Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong could be the big game that we enjoy this holiday before we move on to the next big Nintendo system. And in some ways, this almost makes more sense to me than Mario and Metroid this year, because at least with Mario and Metroid, they've each had a few entries on the Switch and they've gone to enjoy a bit of that Switch boost. But Donkey Kong has only had Tropical Freeze, which was a very minimalist port from the Wii U. I think a new Donkey Kong game on Switch could potentially benefit the most from the Switch boost and obtain an incredibly large audience and bring back Donkey Kong back to prominence, which supposedly is what Miyamoto and Nintendo want for the series. Now, could there be something else beyond Metroid, Donkey Kong, or Mario that would be the big holiday release? I personally don't have expectations for anything else major. There are other things Nintendo is working on, but I think they would be saving them. So for example, what Monolith is working on, maybe a new big IP. I don't think we're seeing that on Switch, and the next Mario Kart, I'm sure that's been well underway if not totally completed already. They're saving that too for the next big system. And they're letting us enjoy this DLC in the meanwhile, which doesn't end till sometime later this year. So I do think it's between those three games: Metroid, Donkey Kong, Mario. But those are my thoughts on the matter. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.